Welcome to Money in Motion by Trade the Chain. If you want more from CJ and Monte, subscribe to Trade the Chain and get access to the TTC community Discord, weekly futures reports, AI-driven cryptocurrency sentiment indicators, and other exclusive content. For a 14-day free trial, visit tradethechain.com or visit the link in the video description.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to another edition of Money in Motion. A lot of exciting stuff to talk about, namely how the NASDAQ looks quite awful. I want to think about, we're thinking about how that really will impact things like gold, the dollar, as well as Bitcoin, most importantly. I'm sure that's what you guys care about most, as I do as well this week. Monte, how you doing? Any first impressions this morning?
Yeah, doing well, CJ, and I'll definitely get to those impressions. First, I want to just quickly say what up to everyone in the chat: Lucas, Jenna, Phoenix, Keith, Roz. Hope you guys all are doing well. And like CJ said, exciting start to the morning. Also we had the news that ARK sells Coinbase and GBTC, but Coinbase honestly hanging in there quite well, I gotta say. All things considered, you'd think a headline like that might drive it down a little bit, but not really. But you asked, anything standing out to me. And I just want to say, Lucas, you put it very concisely yesterday. And I know you're looking for a little bit of praise right now, so let me give you some. But, yesterday you put it really concisely when you said that I said it in about 1,000 words and you said it in like 5. Weak equities, Bitcoin strong equals me bullish. And today, like, Bitcoin is not turning around with the equity markets. Ordinarily, what we'd see when the equity markets open this week is Bitcoin at least showing some signs of risk-off price action, some signs of pulling back. We're not. This is just ordinary run-of-the-mill resistance to me, and I think that we still can climb higher, even in the face of what are looking to be some very, very weak equity markets, particularly when you look at the S&P. So, obviously this is concerning. And we've talked about how, sometimes Bitcoin doesn't show that high beta relationship when the stock market's going up, but it shows it when it's going down. Well, now we're actually getting the opposite, right? Where Bitcoin's up today about 1.5%. I want to see it carry above this 35K level. A candle body close above that level would have me super bullish, especially with what we're seeing from equities. But the fact that we haven't dumped already today and equities are looking this weak and looking like we may see, finally, some negative price action and the bears really start to print here, I'm very encouraged by Bitcoin. So just wanted to start with that. I mean, we'll see if it does turn around. If it does, I would look at this 32K level as a possible level for a bounce. But in the interim, very, very impressive relative strength from Bitcoin.
Yeah, so far. I mean, I want it to go up, but I just have my doubts, man. I'll get to that. Let's talk NASDAQ real quick. All right, so I'll just kind of reiterate what we talked about briefly at the start of the week, was just looking at positioning and basically where we've come so far. Our Bob rallying a bit. My deepest concern with things like ES and NASDAQ and what we've seen in terms of positioning has really followed through since Monday, where you see things like the Dow, which was giving a buy signal, but you had ES and NASDAQ providing sell signals, which is a pretty bearish pairs trade if you were to expect the NASDAQ to lead on the way down. Plus, when you consider all of the shorts in the Dow, the open interest is so small that it's actually offset by the amount of longs in both ES and NASDAQ. So I think even though the Dow was a buy last week, like it's still a very bearish setup for equities and NASDAQ. And as we've seen this zero line, it's just like, it's very obvious to me, and this is what the data is showing, that everybody who was bearish at the start of the year, who missed the uptrend, really got long at the top here, very similar to like what they did in the Nikkei and other things. So like, we're at a very critical level. This is what a technician would call a descending triangle or whatever, but maybe it's makes people afraid. And the whole point is that there's a lot of longs who are up here at the top. And if recession fears re-legitimize, and like, these people are weak hands, they bought into the trend just because it was going up. So if the trend starts going down, they're going to sell in the same manner, in my opinion. That's what we usually see when we get these crowded positioning. So, what am I looking at? I think like 13,800 is probably, it looks to be where we're going. For crypto's sake, I hope we start getting bids and things like ES and NASDAQ. But as you can see, E-minis have already made a lower low, where NASDAQ is kind of, trailing that. So there's really like nothing to be bullish about on equities. And, it's very concerning if you're holding the crypto equities. Like, yeah, Bitcoin's holding up, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like the equity market looks horrible, and there's no really getting around that.
No, there's not. And obviously I mentioned Bitcoin showing signs of resilience against this weak equity market, but we know that if equities do show signs of risk on price action, that would be tremendously beneficial to Bitcoin and lead to a lot more speculation, not only into Bitcoin, but into the crypto related equities as well, in my opinion. So definitely, a point worth noting. Like, yeah, we're grinding higher for Bitcoin right now, but we would be, I think, ripping to the upside if circumstances were different in the NASDAQ. And looking within the NASDAQ, I don't really think it's going to change anytime soon. I think we might see more negative price action. One that we had talked a lot about in terms of trading it around earnings, or looking at it into earnings, was Google. And this is why I don't like to bet on earnings. And this was the point that I was trying to make during this trade, is that I am, and I got very lucky in this regard, that it did run up into earnings, and then even though it beat on the top and the bottom, still down 8.4% today. So big move down, very, very reminiscent of what we saw from Tesla after their earnings. Their earnings were negative, but I don't think it really matters. Now you have stocks like Amazon that have earnings tomorrow, and it's down 3% today, looking at a very vulnerable level. A move down to this moving average really would hurt the NASDAQ. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility based on what we've seen from comparable companies following their earnings reports, regardless of whether or not they're positive or negative, or if they beat on the top or bottom line. It doesn't make a difference, really. What we've been seeing is, just strong moves to the downside, and I think that is set to continue. Yeah, like Chris points out, I mean, Google didn't have a good call. Their numbers were good, but the call was pretty bearish in terms of their overall outlook. And that's what I think is, contributing to that negative price action. But also Chris making another good point, Microsoft is one that did knock their earnings out of the park, beating by over 12% on the top and over 3% on the bottom, leading to a nice jump in price. Now, will this be sustained? I really don't think so, just based on the price action we're seeing in ES, price action we're seeing in the NASDAQ. I expect this to come back down. It'll likely be dragged down alongside, things like, I think, Amazon, if it does break this level here. And of course, Google looking very, very precarious here as we enter the trading day. So, looking in the basket of the Qs, earnings haven't really led to favorable price action. And I don't think that's going to change for the stocks that still have earnings ahead of them. So, you know, they've Meta in particular, Meta and Nvidia doesn't have earnings for a while, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, not until late November. Nonetheless, like, it's still so propped up. I feel like this thing could move to the downside very, very quickly, and maybe not fill this gap, but start to fill this gap and find some support at the 200-day moving average. But ultimately, like, this stock has just been lingering around this level for so long. A break is starting to feel more and more imminent. So, you know, I haven't really come out with a strong opinion on Nvidia, but after last week failing to get back up to this level of close to 500 here, we really started to see weakness around 475. Now we didn't even make it up to 450. This one looks like it's just trending down to me, and in general is going to lead to more weakness in the Qs. So not exactly great news if you are an Nvidia holder, but ultimately, again, just going back to the point that I'm encouraged by the resilience of Bitcoin in the face of lots of these equities looking pretty scary today. When you have Google down 8.5%, you have the S&P lingering on a breakdown level, and you still have Bitcoin grinding.
Dude, stop! You're just daring it to close red.
I don't care.
Jinx it, man.
I don't care if it closes red. Why would I'm saying it doesn't matter to me, because Bitcoin's still grinding higher, and that's
what I'm talking about is Bitcoin. You're gonna jinx it.
Okay. I didn't realize you were superstitious.
It's just like enjoy it while it lasts.
How am I supposed to do analysis? How am I supposed to do analysis without making a prediction? Everything
I do it all the time. You just say where the risk reward is optimal, but it's not about like predicting the future. You know that.
Yeah, and the risk reward to Bitcoin, I think, is very optimal right now, given the fact that it's grinding to the upside while equities are continuing to fall and look incredibly weak. Like, that's
so if you think NASDAQ goes to 13,800, Bitcoin's just gonna keep going up.
There's no indication that Bitcoin is going to turn around on a weak NASDAQ or ES print. There's nothing in the last week has indicated that. So why would I think that?
I'm just saying it's something to consider.
It is, but I don't think that's going to be the outcome.
Okay. Anything else you want to move on to?
Nope, all yours.
All right. I guess I'll talk about trend following a bit. Yeah, so trend following in like non-crowded markets, I think is interesting. I did kind of quit on ZL a bit early, which is fine. Not really disappointed about it, but like that's an example of trend following in just non-crowded markets that I think could be interesting. And we've seen oil and a lot of stuff just really continue to sell off. So I like kind of the energy market and looking at that for potential continuation, maybe down into like, I think oil does maybe fall into the 70s. Either way, like I think there's just a lot of people who still bought this, who were, buying it for the right reasons, quote unquote. Oil was very fundamentally bullish with supply numbers getting, very decreased. So we'll see here ultimately, but I think it's still a good example of trend following in non-crowded markets. So I like that one. Maybe a retrace to like 260. We'll see. And then NASDAQ, yeah, like, pretty rough level today. So I think that's a good short hedge to any like crypto equity exposure. But yeah, Bitcoin continues to grind higher. That's really all I've got.
Nothing on, I mean, you did, I guess, mention crypto equities, but nothing specifically on coin. I'm a bit encouraged by, I mean, it is pulling back a little bit more now, but like it's still outperforming many of the names in the Magnificent Seven.
It doesn't matter because everybody owns that. Like the only people who own that in mass are large, like institutional players or funds. And if they're losing money on their long NASDAQ positions, it doesn't matter if Bitcoin's going up. They're just going to sell the crypto equities because that's who holds it. So it's like all the advantages that was bringing you that resilience in crypto equities at the start of the year because the NASDAQ was going up is now just like you're getting the other side of the sword, which is very bad. Like these assets should be performing with high beta, but they're not. So,
well, I mean, you don't consider Coinbase's price action in the last week to be high beta relative to the NASDAQ?
no, it's a Bitcoin.
Yeah, but what's the logic in a guy who's, watching the NASDAQ bleed, seeing Coinbase holding steady? Why would he sell his Coinbase position just because the NASDAQ's bleeding?
Like
Coinbase has proven that in the last 3 months, it doesn't want to go below $70, even though NASDAQ and S&P have looked incredibly weak. So I don't understand the logic in, oh, NASDAQ's dumping, let me dump the one thing that's been resilient.
I mean, I'm not dumping it, but I'm saying like understand the risk to the downside. Like if NASDAQ goes to 13,800, this chart's going to look even worse than it already does. And it's like,
but why are we looking at the Bitcoin chart? Like,
because that's what is like relevant. It's like, do you want to own Coinbase or do you want to own Bitcoin? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but like you said, for a lot of big players, it's not necessarily an option to just go out there and buy spot Bitcoin. So their exposure comes via vehicles like Coinbase. Wasn't that your whole thesis for being bullish Coinbase?
Yeah, but those same people are not bullish crypto.
I get that, but I'm saying
my thesis is wrong. That's why I'm so concerned and being so skeptical about it.
I just don't understand the logic in being like, okay, the NASDAQ is in a severely, or the S&P, looking very precarious here. Coinbase has held its ground for the last 3 months and actually shown signs that it could plausibly pump.
Look at the candle yesterday is just so pathetic. And
pathetic
understand, like, yeah, maybe Bitcoin will be okay. But if the NASDAQ crashes like 10% in a day, which it easily could based on the current positioning, and the fact that nobody is saying, oh, when Dan Nathan comes out and says, oh, well, the market's not going to crash here after he's been long like Qs like over the last week. Like it's just not, you have all those people who bought, and if they capitulate because they're weak hands, like the entire market's going to get, like, do you remember COVID? Do you remember how like dramatic that was? That could come back. And there's a decent chance, like maybe not a sell-off. I'm not saying we're going to go to new lows or anything, but I'm saying like that move from wherever we are now in the NASDAQ to like 13,800 would feel like immense panic. And I think would cause a lot of selling and risk assets across the board, regardless if it was Bitcoin or not.
Yeah.
And it's already gone up. Like who's going to buy Bitcoin here? I hope that's a terrible question. I shouldn't ask that. But really, like,
I mean, I think there's a good case to buy Bitcoin up here. Like if you see the NASDAQ down 1.5% and Bitcoin up 2% today, we've gone all year without seeing that. We're getting the signs of resilience that we've been talking about all year. Finally, we're getting it. So why is this not a good indication to buy Bitcoin? This resilience from Bitcoin into
I'm not saying it's bearish Bitcoin per se. I think it's really bad for the crypto equities, but in terms of Bitcoin, I just like, it's just you're pretty much chasing it up here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd agree with that. But if it gets above 35K, I think it's a very reasonable buy if it's able to climb the wall of worry of this equity market, get above 35K. If the equity market crashing and the Nasdaq moving down towards, it's 200-day moving average, and we see the ES really start to break down in levels of which we haven't seen in quite a while, and Bitcoin is still going up, that is incredibly bullish to me, and I still think is good justification for buying a breakout above 35,000. Just
I know, man. I want that to happen more than you. I want that to happen just as much as you. Believe me. It's just like the risk is just.
I'm not saying what I want to happen. I'm saying what I think is going to happen based on risk, based on the resilience that Bitcoin has shown in this last week. To me, that's something we haven't seen since October of 2020. We haven't seen this sort of resilience from Bitcoin in the face of this weak equity market. And we all know where price went from there. So
yeah, but it wasn't already up like $10,000 in a week or $5,000 in a day. So
yeah, but it's also
all about the context about how it gets there.
Yeah, but it was making new all-time highs, which is a lot harder to do than retracing to previous all-time highs. Moving Bitcoin was at 64,000. We're at 34K right now. Like you have said many times in the show, it's probably going to make that move to back up there in a matter of days. Not weeks, not months, days, right? That's what Bitcoin does. It moves very quickly, especially when we're talking about being 50% off the all-time high. So you're right. It is all about context. And I think the context is actually leading to a favorable outcome here for Bitcoin.
I mean, yeah, it's very simple. Like I wouldn't be chasing it here if I was flat. If I was long, like I would just hold. And it doesn't seem like the risk reward is very good to the upside here with Bitcoin, especially when equities are facing so much like, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I think we're also not really factoring in the international markets a lot because Nikkei and, well, I guess they're kind of down now, but they did have a pretty nice day yesterday. Either way, man, I hope price goes up, but I don't know. I'm worried about it. That's all I really have to say.
Yeah. Phoenix is talking about Bitcoin's 90-day correlation and DXY is being negative 0.15 when it's usually around 0.7, 0.8. Yeah. Seeing some interesting divergences here. Some really interesting divergences. And I just find that like to be so important. I mean, historically, whenever we see like strength in the equity weakness or, that
but
sort of,
how long can that last realistically? Who knows? No one knows.
Yeah.
We're rolling the dice,
I mean, until Bitcoin, like you would think that Bitcoin would be down pretty big today, just based on looking at the Nasdaq, looking at the S&P, looking at the DXY. But it's not. It's up almost 2%. So, we could talk risk reward, yeah, but like there is something to be said. Like that is definitely a large part of trading. Like defining your risk reward, and
that's the only part of trading, really.
No, it's not, because if you buy something that's in a trend, where's your risk and reward? If you're trend following, if you buy something in the middle of a trend, like that's where I think we could be in Bitcoin, like the start of a trend, and you're not going to have good risk reward when you're in what is technically like price discovery, even though it's not, because we've already been at these levels. So trading isn't always about risk reward. I think if you're talking about trading something that you are.
Well, that would be investing more. I think if you're talking about trading, it is only about, that's in the long term, that's the only thing that really matters, is whether or not you're picking good risk reward trades over the long time. But investing in an asset that you believe will go up over time because it's developing a trend, sure, like I understand that. Anyways, I don't want to get too bogged down. I feel like we're starting to argue about stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I guess the basic disagreement is I think today's a good day to plausibly buy Bitcoin, and you not so much. But
yeah, I don't think it's worth it up here. I'll be honest about that.
Yeah,
could be wrong, but
yeah, I think it's just gonna be me and Phoenix up here, Brian. But we'll see. We'll see if we have enough dry powder to push it above that 35K level, Phoenix.
Yeah.
But the show's called Money in Motion, Chris. Get with it.
Anyways, hope you guys have a good day. Monte, I'll let you have the final word here.
For sure. Yeah, hope everyone has a wonderful day. As always, you can hang out with CJ and I in the Discord. You can try it for 14 days for free. The link right below me, 14 days free at tradethechain.com. That gets you access to the sentiment dashboard, also the Discord. So definitely head over there and check that out. And again, thank you to everyone for participating, all the great comments. And yeah, that is all I got. You guys rock. Love you all very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And we will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you and take care.
Thank you for watching Money in Motion. If you want more from Monte and CJ, subscribe to Trade the Chain and get access to the TTC community Discord, weekly futures reports, AI-driven cryptocurrency sentiment indicators, and other exclusive content. For a 14-day free trial, visit tradethechain.com or visit the link in the video description. Thank you, everyone. We hope you have a profitable